Till today, I miss her every second, every day, every minute. So it's not something which can be erased from my mind. Very honest with my wife, that's Arjun's mother, Mona. And she very well knew that what my feelings were for Sri. In fact, Sri had stayed in a house much before we got married. And I went out of my way for lots of things where she's concerned. And Anil, we were a pair of brothers who had an exceptional understanding. He had to think and I would know what he's thinking, and I had to think and he would know what I'm thinking. He's a little upset with me because No Entry has been launched without him. He was very keen to be in it. But before I could tell him anything, the news was leaked. At that point of time, I could not be honest with my children because they were too small. You know, as they grew up, they understood. And I knew they would understand. It took a while. Although somewhere in one corner, that angst could still be there. I love him. And in fact, in between there, about a couple of years back, Janhvi was not seeing him, but I was still friendly to him. I was convinced that he can never be an ex. Oh. He'll be around.
Hello everybody, I'm Rudrani and welcome to Zoom Speak Easy. My guest today is a person who's seen the industry, the highs, the lows, along with his career. He's given us some iconic films and he's here today continuing to make sure that all of you are entertained. I'm talking about, of course, the producer that we've all loved and continue to do so, Mr. Boney Kapoor. Thank you for joining in.
Well, thank you for the good words that you've used to introduce me, the special words that you've used to introduce me. I am blessed and honored.
But I meant every word because you've
I could feel that you meant.
Absolutely. You've given some really iconic films and there is an expectation that you will continue to do so. And you have and the iconic films you've protected as well. People have made franchise after franchise using that particular thing. You've been very particular in protecting them.
Yes.
It's not always easy to do when you're very tempted to give in to the trends of
franchises,
isn't it?
Sequels and prequels, which is the order of the day today. Even when they don't deserve, they go ahead with that. Only to encash on the goodwill of the earlier successful film.
Yeah.
But good for them.
You have also gone through the highs and lows of every producer goes through and incurred losses, made very successful
Almost
films.
bankrupt.
Almost bankrupt. But you still chose to not do that, which others have still been following. So it's very interesting for me to know why.
See, if you're talking of Mr. India, which is
absolutely
my earlier iconic film, if I may take the liberty of calling it iconic.
It is iconic, sir.
Okay.
Please, debate.
See, Mr. India needs a dedicated crew. When we did Mr. India, we had Shekhar Kapoor who was doing nothing else but Mr. India. Javed Akhtar was doing nothing else but Mr. India. Baba Azmi was doing nothing but Mr. India. Satish Kaushik was an absolutely wonderful associate director. And everybody, Sri was doing a few films here and there, Anil was doing a few films here and there, but their excitement level was such that they would rush back to the shoot of Mr. India thinking there's something more exciting happening. And the children also, it was their first experience. And we had some lovely songs, we had some fabulous choreography in the film. And Mr. India was the first film where you had, I won't call it VFX, but special effects, which were done in camera. There was nothing in post because I was very clear, I want nothing in post. So we had a R&D team who would experiment. And all what you see in the film has been done in camera. Nothing was done in post.
Which is why you want to protect that baby, isn't it?
Yeah, but maybe now I will get on to it. I have got some very interesting offers. There are people who are ready to back me on that, invest big time on it. So let's see, maybe one day you'll hear about that too.
Now you just mentioned that there was a time that you almost went bankrupt, right? And this is a lot of producers have gone through it, right?
But then they go to Himalayas after getting bankrupt.
Us samay, how do you go through that phase, A? And how do you stick to your guns and say, no, it's fine, I'll overcome this?
Well, I believe there are no shortcuts in life. If you are going through a downturn, it is your doing. I will never blame anybody else. So, there has got to be resilience in you to come back. And I have a lot of it. Twice I've been through this major dip in my journey. And here I am in a fancy red dress, sitting
Looking
as
very
confident, sitting as confident as I can be to impress you and to impress the viewers.
It's wonderful. The reason I bring that up is because I spoke to Amit Sharma and he said that we could make this film because I had a producer like Boney Kapoor. Because of the kind of numerous setbacks that you guys had, particularly the kind of money that has been lost and put in. And you still told them, no, we will, put this out in the theatres. And he genuinely was like, I think it's because we have a
You know, he's
producer.
partial towards me because he's like my son. So he likes to speak only good things about me.
But it is true. You've had a very difficult journey with Maidan, right? Maidan's releasing.
I had a difficult journey with Mr. India too. You know, there was Hope 86 strike, 6 months the industry was closed. So there have been times where things have not been really as smooth as they should be during the progress of the film. So perhaps I take that as a good sign. Mr. India went through its own turmoil, and now this has gone through its own turmoil. No Entry went through its own turmoil. The picture was, almost in a state where release होगी कि नहीं होगी,
पता नहीं था.
पर फाइनली हो गई. तो ऐसी कई चीज़ें हैं जो अब जैसे जुदाई में सबने कहा था बोनी की शादी होगी श्री के साथ, सब लोग पिक्चर को बू करेंगे. तो पहले 3 दिन तो मतलब ये था कि ऑडियंस कम थी, 50% कैपेसिटी थी या 40% कैपेसिटी थी. बट फ्रॉम द 4th डे इट जस्ट पिक्ड अप. इनफैक्ट इट्स अमंग्स माई बिगेस्ट मनी स्पिनर्स. रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट इज बेस्ट इन जुदाई.
क्या इन्हीं एक्सपीरियंसेस की वजह से आप मैदान जैसे फिल्म में जितनी भी प्रॉब्लम्स हुई है, रिक्रिएशन ऑफ द सेट,
I don't call them problems.
You can't call them problems. What do you call them?
I feel it's part of the journey. It is my test.
So then, in that case, when there are people telling that their payments have not been cleared, cases are being filed, how are you looking at that?
There are no cases filed. Only one guy has filed it.
Correct.
Now, I mean, he probably is a guy who's
The vendor for the equipment is what you
equipment.
say.
हाँ. So you see, for a producer who stuck around for 45, 50 years, cannot be around for this kind of period if he is a cheat or if he is. I'm one person. After No Entry released, I paid money to actors and vendors much later.
Yeah.
Get me any vendor who feels this way. I will show you messages of several vendors who, but he did it for his own reason. I don't know why he did it. Probably he wanted to extract more money.
Are you feeling confident about Maidan? Because I saw the trailer, it looks fantastic.
Well, the film is fantastic too.
Are there few people in the industry whose words and whose critic of movies you take seriously? कि उनको दिखा के आपको लगता है एक बार दिखा दूँ, ये अगर उन्होंने बोल दिया कि चलेगी तो मतलब.
मेरी खुद की जजमेंट काफ़ी है.
Really? Nobody else. Can you predict sometimes, now that you've been in the industry, do you have a feeling of whether the audience will accept this or not?
They will accept it. To what extent, I can't say.
But you get that feeling, which is why you go for it.
Yes.
It's wonderul to see not just as a producer, but I've heard stories about how emotional you are as a father as well. And I think that's something that we need to appreciate. You've been someone who's taken all of their journeys very emotionally when somebody's gone there. Apparently you cried when Khushi trailer came out and you saw it. How have you evolved as a father when you see yourself today?
Like any normal father who is absolutely in love with the children. And of course, I'm emotional. When I see my children doing something good, when I see them appearing for the first time in a film, obviously it gives me the lumps and I feel good, especially because I find them looking good, I find them playing the part well. And fortunately for me, my children have this ability to do the part well. So I have enjoyed their journey, and there's rarely been an occasion where I've had to tell them aisa nahi aisa karo.
Which is wonderful. For a person who's so emotional, you've been through the most emotional highs and lows in your life, and of course, talking about one of the greatest superstars that we have, your wife, Sridevi ji, is something that everybody gets very heartbroken about.
She's watching you.
I know. It's a beautiful picture, by the way. How did you deal?
It's a painting.
It's beautiful. I walked in and I said, it's just beautiful.
And I've not framed it only because I want it to look real.
Yeah, it does look very real. How did you deal with that phase? Because for ones who are watching, I think you...
See, let's not talk about that. I dealt with it. I have my own shock absorbers, but at the same time, till today, I miss her every second, every day, every minute. So it's not something which can be erased from my mind. Next.
I know it's difficult. I didn't want to make you this, but I think probably because we all miss her and I brought it up, so, but it's okay.
It's okay.
And I understand it must be difficult for you. You know why I brought it up, sir? Because saw an interview where Janhvi mentions that her idea of romance and home comes from the way she used to see you and Shriji at house. And
She's not told me this.
Huh?
And then she's not told me this.
I saw an interview of hers where she said it, which is what I thought when I meet you, I must bring it up. Because,
well,
you know,
it's news for me.
I will send it to you as well where she said it. You know, she said this and she said it, the idea of home is watching you being like cute with Shriji and, you know, watching you being romantic and being that person. That's where her idea of home and love comes from. It is the most pure
I'm
thing.
glad it does. I'm glad it does.
How has that been for you? Because you see, whatever you've thought has been inculcated, not just this, even the religious beliefs that both of you had. You see that being carried
She
forward.
had more, I had less. In fact, I got into that thanks to her.
Correct. But today when I tell you this, how do you feel about the fact that Janhvi's really looked up at the way you have, you know, been as a father, as a partner and as somebody?
Well, I feel I'm fortunate that she's looked up and she's picked up, I hope she's picked up only the good things too, to carry on with her life from my being there for her, for the other children. I mean, there are aspects of mine which sometimes I don't realize when I get carried away. Either I give too much of love, but I don't remember getting angry with, only once I've got angry, I think, with Khushi and once with Janhvi.
Never.
With Arjun, though, he gets angry on me. I don't get angry with him.
Yes. Yeah, you mentioned Arjun, and Arjun been someone that I've been really fond of and had numerous conversations. I don't know if you've seen them. And he's been very open about it. I think I learned from it. Arjun and your relationship has become so beautiful today and he's very proud of that. Both worked on it and it's reached where it's reached today. It's been difficult, right? Like we've had to navigate through so many things and he had to.
Every relation to reach its peak has got to be navigated with a lot of care. Basically, you know, the journey to carry on to reach the peak of a relationship has got to be thought of, has got to be, I mean, they've got to be handled with kid gloves and make sure that you understand what the other person wants and you give without the other person asking. I mean, that's what I follow.
Was that how it was for you when you were trying to navigate through all of that? Like you said, you know, his anger or his not understanding in the beginning, because I think we are children in the beginning. Then you finally, when parents grow up.
I understood that is the reason I gave him the opportunity to get angry with me or to take off on me. And I didn't retaliate only because I knew where he's coming from.
Yeah. Does it become difficult for an emotional person not to feel so guilty?
Well, it does become difficult, but at the same time, you see, I was very honest with my wife, that's Arjun's mother, Mona. And she very well knew that what my feelings were for Sri. In fact, Sri had stayed in a house much before we got married. And I went out of my way for lots of things where she's concerned. So she could see it and I didn't deny it. My mother could see it. In fact, my mother, ye jo aata na Rakhi Waki ka, when my mother saw it, she was the one who gave a thali of with Rakhi and all that and gave it to Sri, ke Boney ko Rakhi bando.
Really?
So she just went to the room and I said, don't worry, don't bother, just keep this thali here.
And then
And she didn't understand what the Rakhi is all about.
Then what happened was that?
Nothing. My love for her was there. I wooed her for almost 5-6 years before I reached the peak. Or rather, where I got to know that I am in a good space with her.
But I think you've also tried to be protective. I feel like women go through so much when you're particularly a public figure, you know, which must be scary for you as a father, because I feel like, I know actors also go through it, but I feel like I see female actors being more dissed for having their choices or choosing someone to love. which Sridevi also went through. She had to go through so much shaming because she chose to do what she did. For decisions, questioning whether when she had the baby, when
I
she
don't
got
think she
married.
went through any kind of shaming.
No,
There
people
must have been
did.
one or two critic or one or two people who would have reacted. But basically, see, she did unusual roles also, and she did unusual things also. For instance, she lit the fire when her mother passed away. So normally, it's never a female who does this. But she chose to do it.
No, I feel like she never did. She's too dignified to even let it go. But I feel like she lived her life, right? But then every choice is scrutinized even by the people in the media which existed. Now it's still better, right? Like you have social media. Back then you didn't have that. Learning from your experiences, what you all had to go through, was it scary when your daughters were putting themselves out there, and you've had experiences like that? Was it scary for you?
No.
No? How did you sort of make them sit down and say, okay, listen, you're a public figure.
I didn't have to do that.
You didn't have to ever?
They understood. See, they're my children, my DNA.
I love the confidence.
And where Arjun and Anshul are concerned, I can understand their angst too. So I accepted that.
But if you had to give advice to people who are dealing with it, what would you tell them? If through complicated relationships?
No, you see, you need to be honest with your immediate family. And there will be hurdles, there would be ups and downs. But if you're honest with your family, these things pass. By family, I mean immediate family, your parents, your children. Of course, at that point of time, I could not be honest with my children because they were too small.
Of course.
As they grew up, they understood. And I knew they would understand. It took a while. But finally, although somewhere in one corner that angst could still be there, which is all right, which is something which I accept.
Arjun is very knowledgeable when it comes to business, and I feel like people have said that you're that kind of person as well because you've been in the industry, that your knowledge of movies and how they'll do.
50 years.
Can you believe that?
And
it's
50
insane.
years, there's the first case of cheating.
Which is why you must be like, how?
Yeah, okay.
Tell me, do you think like that, the conversation that you've had, or because he's been in that place where you've always had female, you had Anil ji in the family, has, I think, added to that Arjun's knowledge? Everybody says that he has that very knack in production as well, like you.
Me and Anil, we were a pair of brothers who had an exceptional understanding. He had to think and I would know what he's thinking, and I had to think and he would know what I'm thinking. And we had a fabulous journey. I mean, I handled about 52 films. And even after that, there was a few films where he would be a little hesitant to discuss monies with the producers. So there were a couple of films where even after we parted professionally, I went up to the producers and spoke to them and got him the prize that he deserves.
And that is so rare. It's fantastic.
So even now, my love for him will be there. Now, for instance, he's a little upset with me because No Entry has been launched without him. He was very keen to be in it.
Absolutely.
But before I could tell him anything, the news was leaked. And that's my misfortune. I wanted to explain to him, but somewhere he was very keen that he has to be part of it. And I quite understand why he wants, because it's basically a franchise which he had worked on. But finally, in times to come, maybe he will understand. I hope so.
Because you mentioned that, what was your take when you were doing this new sequel to No Entry? Because you're also, it's one of your babies. So you also want to be fair to it. I want to understand, abhi ye jo decision liya gaya, wo kiske basis pe tha? Like, how did you go through that?
Commercial. See, today, Varun, Arjun are best of friends. So the chemistry with them is fantastic between them. Plus, Daljit has become huge. And he has a fantastic sense of comedy.
Yeah, Dilli Dosanjh. Yeah.
So these three together, it makes a very unusual casting. And there will be, just hearing these three names together sends tickles.
Yeah.
So I am hoping that this works even on the screen when the film is made and released. It will, I'm sure, the way the script has shaped up.
But I know that you all share a great bond, so I'm sure he'll be okay with you soon.
Well, I'm sure and I hope so. So it happens sooner than later.
Sooner, I hope so. I hope so. But I've come back to Maidan. I spoke to Amit, and he said that, you know, in the beginning you were like, when there's an Ajay Devgan, and जिनको पता है कि, you know, सिंघम है या ये है वो है, उनको ऐसे किरदार में देना जो कि should not look like Ajay Devgan on screen, for me was the hesitancy in the beginning. But, you know, when I saw it, I knew that nobody else can today do what he did for Maidan. How did you look at the casting of it?
I think it was stroke of luck that we thought of him. And I think this is the best thing that could happen to the film. He is absolutely wonderful. And he's so sincere. You see, there was no, whenever he was on set, there was no
Tantrums.
And at the same time, I mean, he was giving inputs to the other actors, to this thing, which made a lot of sense. And at the same time, he had that discipline. When the director said something, he was like an obedient soldier. And that is, and you see, that understanding, that rapport between Amit and Ajay developed right from the first schedule.
Which is why I think he said at the end nobody else could have done Maidan better than that. You've been here for 50 years. What is it that the industry today is going through? You know, they say हमेशा के 5 साल या 6 साल में एक phase होता है, एक trend होता है.
Well, Abhi, now the business has opened up. Films are doing 500 crore. जो पहले 100 crore was a big deal. Then 200 crore was big deal. 300 crore was big deal. अब तो 500 is a big deal. 500 से नीचे हो तो ऐसा लगता नहीं यार 500 करना चाहिए था. अभी this is one change. Plus at the same time, पहले हम सब बात करते थे South industry is far more disciplined. I have worked in South also, I have worked here also. I feel our industry is as disciplined as South. Depends on which actors you're working with. Most of the actors here. And contracts are respected. There they work without contracts, but the sincerity is there. But I find no difference. They are there. In fact, you know, when I've done 3 films with Ajit. There were times when he had an accident, he had a fall while shooting, but he was ready for the next shot there itself. And I could see the bruises and all that. And we shot one sequence in Russia where he was being dragged by the motorbikes and he insisted on doing it himself. So there are very few actors who would, जबकि भाई मालूम है duplicate भी कर सकता है या ये भी कर सकता है तो, but he did it. And that is why that sequence came across as a wonderful sequence.
What would you describe as some of the films from the ones that you've produced or otherwise will remain iconic and shouldn't be remade, and why?
See, there have been people after me कि भाई हमको हम 5 बनाने दो, हम 5 दोबारा बननी चाहिए. वो 7 दिन डायरेक्टली इनडायरेक्टली बन चुकी है.
जी.
फिर एक हमारी फिल्म थी पोंगा पंडित, वो भी बन चुकी है. तो है ऐसे, अब मिस्टर इंडिया तो बन नहीं सकती. इट नीड्स दैट एलिमेंट.
जी.
जुदाई भी ऊपर नीचे करके टेलीविजन शो आई थिंक बन रहे हैं या बने हैं. हैं और अच्छा लोफर वॉज जस्ट अ कमर्शियल पॉट बॉयलर.
जी.
तो उसका रीमेक का सवाल ही नहीं होता है. Then wanted I will be making a sequel because I've spoken to Salman. I said, okay, you're not doing this film. I will do this film and I want you to do this.
Correct.
At that point he said, yes, Boney sir, I will do it.
Is that happening still?
First let me finish.
But it's in the pipeline, so.
In my thoughts.
In your thoughts. But hopefully. Today they said is the genre of action, okay, which we all see. हर जगह.
This is what I thought when I did Wanted. No, Wanted देख के मुझे ऐसा लगा था, ये जेम्स बॉन्ड की पिक्चर आई थी कैसीनो रॉयल. तो उसमें पहली बार बॉन्ड था जो हाथ से फाइट करता है. तो मैंने कहा सूनर और लेटर दिस विल कम टू इंडिया ऑल्सो. तब मैंने वांटेड सेलेक्ट की और ये था कि भाई इट इज़ द era of action which will come back again. And now action has got to be shot in a classy way.
Yeah, of course.
Not the crude way. And that's what we had in Wanted. And imagine Salman, there was not a single duplicate shot in the film.
They are saying that producers ऐसे नहीं मिल रहे जो ऐसे family dramas उस पे बेझिझक उतने पैसे डाल सके उस बड़े स्केल के लिए. What is the producer's view on this? मैं जब directors को या I was talking to actors, they're like, but nobody wants to really put in the big scale. Very few people.
I hear you, but I don't believe in all this. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. You get a good script, any actor will jump into it. The script has got to be to his liking. See, I don't mix around with other producers.
Okay.
I live in my own cocoon.
I love it.
I have my own set of friends, and mostly they are writers. Javed Akhtar, Rumi Jafri. So it's more of a creative chat that we have all the time. And of course, if we are sitting together, there are so many incidents which each comes out with. Like I've been around for 50 years, so I have so many stories to tell. Javed Akhtar has been around for 60 years. He has so many stories to tell. Rumi Jafri has been around for 40 years or maybe 35 years. So he has so many stories to sell. And then Love Ranjan lives opposite. There is Amit Sharma who's... So my friend circle is not a huge circle. I have Tutu Sharma, Ashok Thakaria, Indra Kumar. They are the only film producers with whom we may not be gelling as on a concept level. I may not agree with the kind of films they do. But we remain friends.
You're also supposed to be known as this really cool dad because you're friends to mostly all of your children, right?
Not mostly. I am friendly to all my children.
All your children. Which is very rare for a person like us because we have that generation gap. You apparently are this cool dad. So I want to know, for someone like that, when the paparazzi said that, no, he said don't click pictures, doesn't sound like you. Is that you when you were trying to stop and say, no, don't click pictures?
No, because that is only because he didn't want to be clicked. It was not for any other reason. Probably, I don't know what the reason was. He wanted me to have the limelight on my, limelight not to be diluted by him being there.
Which is
so
the
write-up would have been more Shikhar and more this thing.
So that's the reason. I love I asked this question then. But it's wonderful that you have that bond there as well, right? Like,
absolutely. I mean, I love him. And in fact, in between there, about a couple of years back, Janhvi was not seeing him, but I was still friendly to him.
This is, what I'm saying, when as a cool person, it is because you have to have different level of maturity to be friends with your daughter's exes. Like, and I want to have that bond with my mother.
I was convinced he can never be an ex. Oh. He'll be around.
But your prediction has come true. But it's wonderful to see that, right? Like carrying the tradition forward because he said that he's been for you as well. Right? This is what Janhvi said in that episode as well, that he has been there for you. And you rarely hear that.
Well, it is. I mean, any person who's there for you in any capacity, whether it's for Janhvi, whether it's for me, whether it's for Arjun, he's friendly to all. So, I mean, I feel we are blessed to have somebody like him in our setup.
And in the other side of it, as a father, as an emotional person, how do you deal with the trolling that happens? Or how do you deal with that? Because I know you must be going through...
That's something which you've got to live with. You've got to accept it, you've got to live with it. क्योंकि उनका अपना काम है, वो तो करेंगे, नहीं करेंगे तो उनकी मतलब रोजी रोटी रह जाएगी या उनके अंदर के इंस्टिंक्ट सेटिस्फाई नहीं होंगे. अब जैसे मेरा ट्रेलर आया है, I mean 9 out of 10 people have liked it, but there will be 1% of people who would say नहीं यार, तो you've got to accept that.
I feel for a long time, and Janhvi is among those few people who was absolutely okay with the nepotism debate because she's like, you know what, I know they will like me. And that is a very rare confidence to deal with it. And now she's completely okay because you see the comments and the narrative change. You see the kind of work she's doing and you see people responding saying, you know what, she's good. We should like her. But it's a lot to take in. Even again, the same thing happened when Khushi's debut happened, right? And she had to go through all those comments of...
More so for Khushi because there were a bunch of...
people who were from film families.
Yeah.
Correct. So when you were doing that, how do you sort of give advice? Because I know you want to be protective. They worked hard.
When I used to tell them, relax. I mean, these are things which will just pass.
That's the advice that you gave?
Yes.
I think it worked because I think now they are in that space when they are...
Yeah, they're comfortable.
So do you have any advice to give usually now? Now they are signing great films. I mean, Janhvi is working with, like with Junior NTR and she has all of that and Khushi has signed more films and stuff.
Yeah, Janhvi is working with Junior NTR, Ramcharan, then Surya in this XL picture. Do
you ever, is there a time when they actually come to you today for script advices to know how...
Well, Janhvi does leave a script with me to read it. But I always prefer hearing it rather than reading it.
Really?
There's only one script that I've read, and that was English of English. Because I had this sciatica pain and I was in bed for almost a month. The first day I read the first 6-8 pages and I kept the book aside. Second day when I started, after the drama became a little more prominent, I finished it in one go. So I don't remember reading any other script except this film. And you know something, English first was planned. Gauri was to do it with Aishwarya Rai. And Balki wanted to do it with Sri in South Indian languages.
Correct.
And I pursued him, why do you want to do only regional language with her? There couldn't be anybody better than her to do the Hindi version too. And then you see, she will be more convincing as a person who can't speak English. She's been Miss India. I mean, I don't know whether this should be there or not because this will. So I feel she's far more suited than anybody else.
How have you maintained that balance of emotional instinct and numbers when you're deciding these things?
See, this is not a planned thing. This is inherent in a person. How you assess a film or how you think about a project. तो मैं कभी नहीं सोचता हूँ इसके नंबर क्या होंगे, इसके इमोशनल कोशेंट क्या होगा, will it be accepted or not. जो चीज़ मुझे अपील करती है मुझे लगता है पब्लिक को भी करेगी. अगर मुझे नहीं अपील करती है, आई एम लाइक अ नॉर्मल ऑडियंस. मैं कोई ज़्यादा इंटेलेक्चुअल हूँ नहीं, मैं नॉर्मल कॉमन सेंस वाला आदमी हूँ. तो जब कॉमन सेंस वाले आदमी को चीज़ पसंद आती है तो मैंने अपना रिकॉर्ड बताया ना, 7 out of 10 times I have gone right.
Which is a great record, sir.
हो सकते 6.5 हो, but
That's also a great one. It's fine in the industry. It's fine. Well, I think it was wonderful chatting. We'll do a part 2 of it next time because I was truly having a lot of fun. Hearing you be as honest as possible. नहीं तो आजकल नहीं हो रहा होता है ज़्यादा honesty. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful chatting with you. Before I let you go, I must say, if you had to give people who are in production today an advice from a producer who's seen it all, what advice would you give and why?
Go by your conviction. Remain honest to the script or the project that you're working. That's it. Don't get carried away by what others say. Go by your own gut.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Boney Kapoor. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Khub bhalo.